I really thank you all for coming. It's really inspiring to me to see the interest that you know, cooking with spices people have, and certainly they have a place in our daily cooking. So this section will be on spices, cooking. I'm in my kitchen, and next week I think I'll do more of rejuvenation facial work with herbs too. But the foods that we eat should be fresh because they have that prana liveliness to them. They develop that vitality and health in our bodies, which in Ayurveda is called ojas. So ojas are digested food. They're the byproduct of digested food. They're life force, and they put the glow in our skin and expressed in our mind as enthusiasm. And when we eat fresh foods and when we supplement them with spices, we get even more of that life-producing health in our bodies. Ama is the undigested, improperly digested food. That's what they call it in Ayurveda. And it creates a disharmony or a dis-ease in the body. Ama is a lot like the kapha dosha in that it's sticky and heavy and can cause obstructions, like I said, and problems. But the doshas are balanced when we eat for our imbalances. So today I'm going to show you how to make a spice mix with herbs that are good for spring, because spring is the time of, you know, potentially it's a time of wetness and dampness, coolness, and that's those elements increase the kapha dosha. So the kapha, if you have a little kapha imbalance, which could be depicted as a little extra weight or lethargy or even depression in the mind, those are kind of things that can get cleared up with, you know, switching up your diet. I'm sure you've had examples where you've had, I remember when I was younger, because, you know, in college, they always talk about the freshman 20 or something, gaining weight, I think from anxiety, but you sort of have the smorgasbord of eating everything you want and eating anytime you wanted. And I remember what I would feel like after I spent a night eating maybe a lot, you know, things that I wouldn't normally eat, you know, maybe extra ice cream or sugary things. And I wake up the next morning, I almost felt like hungover. And that I never connected it until I started studying Ayurveda, thinking, well, you kind of like did kind of increase that kapha energy and your enthusiasm and your will to, you know, kind of move around kind of got taken the second step. So we're going to just look at that. And spices do have the greatest impact on our body. There are categories of relative impacts of foods on our body. Number one is spices, and the last one is actually grains. So it's kind of interesting to think that spices are first, then comes animal product, then dairy and oil and sweeteners. And so there's like this different categories. So with spices, we have, they're like, they've been used all over the world, and they've been used since the dawn of time. When you think of the Silk Road and the traveling of traders, they traded with spices also. So some of these spices that weren't native to European countries came from the Asian countries because of that trade route. And there was, you know, you've heard about how salt, the expense of, you know, salt was used as a commodity. So were spices. And I like to think of them, my Ayurvedic doctor said they're like potent packages of innate intelligence. So this is turmeric, and it's very orange. I mean, you've seen turmeric. It comes as a tuber, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. I wish you could smell this, because you're like, ooh, it's been in a box, but it's got this very bright orange color to it, and it definitely looks very potent. And if you open up a package of fresh spices, usually the whole room will have this aromatic smell. So we can make different spice mixes and keep them in a jar, make them small amounts so that they stay fresh, but you can make them according to the season. So today we're going to make a spring spice mix, which would be to balance the kapha dosha or kapha in our bodies, that water and earth. So what do we use? We use like heating spices. Like this is ginger, and I get this ground fresh. Haven't opened this one yet, but it's just ginger powder. So it's dehydrated, unlike the root, which I'll use making a chai. I hope we have time to make, I'll make a chai. Here's the ginger root, you know, so we use that too. Of course, that's good for digestion. So I'm going to go over a couple of things. I mentioned the spring spice. If you were having, in the summer, if you're feeling like it's getting too hot, feeling a little overheatedness in the body, then we can make a spice for that. And we use more cooling spices for that. And I can talk about that later. Or, you know, if you're interested in that, you can even email me and ask me what's a pitta spice mix, because I have that on record. And then in the fall, we have more of the dryingness. So we have the Vata spice mix or fall spice mix, whatever, however you want to say it. But today I made a cardamom, a recipe. I made a cardamom tea cake, and I'm going to show it to you. This, I did not eat all this, but this cake is really, it's a wonderful tea cake. It has a lot of cardamom in it. It's actually 1.5 teaspoons of cardamom, but it helps offset that baking kind of sugariness. I'll show you. This is the finished product. So this is cardamom, which comes in a seed form. I have it right here on the package. I buy it in a small quantity in seed form because then I want to grind it to have it be fresh. So, you know, cardamom looks like this tiny seed. And I'll read you the properties of cardamom. It's pretty amazing. And then I take it and grind it in a spice mix in a electric grinder. We're going to be doing some of that today. Grinding in this. And I make it into a powder. So I use that in this recipe. This recipe does call for sugar and butter. You know, those things aren't bad. It's just that if I sat down and ate the whole cake, well, that wouldn't be so good. But, you know, what I find is when I take a portion of this, it really has a satisfying taste because it balances out. It's a very sweet spice, and it balances well with the sugar in the coffee cake. So let me talk about cardamom a little bit. And I will send you, I actually modified a recipe for cardamom tea cake. I kind of changed it up a little bit. I liked it a little better than when I first made it. Let me tell you about cardamom. It's one of the best and safest digestive stimulants. They even have recommended for children for upset stomachs. It awakens the spleen and stimulates this. In Ayurveda, there are sub-doshas of the doshas. So there are 5 sub-doshas of Vata, 5 of Pitta, 5 of Kapha. So it stimulates this Samana dosha, which is the digestive. Samana dosha actually goes in a horizontal circle. So it's in the body. It stimulates the digestion when you're, peristalsis. So it's good for that. It enkindles the digestion, like I said, or we call it Agni, and it removes mucus from the stomach and the lungs. So added to milk, if you add cardamom powder, like a 1/2 teaspoon to a pan of milk, you put it in, like at nighttime, if you want something to soothe you, you can take a cup of milk, and they prefer you work with whole milk because we are going to be breaking down the proteins. We're going to be boiling the milk, and you add cardamom to that, and it actually decreases the mucus forming properties of milk. Many people don't like to take milk because they feel like it congests them. And indeed, it's not for everyone. But if you're finding you wanted to try something soothing, you can take cardamom, put it with milk. You can also take a few whole dates, put those in the mix, and boil it down, and then you can put it in a blender, and it makes a very nice smoothie. And I did this at the beginning of this quarantining because I was feeling rather unsettled at night. A lot of, I'm sure a lot of us like feeling a little anxiety, so it kind of helps with that grounding anxiety. You can also add to that another property. You can add to that this turmeric, which you can still see, still coloring this my measuring cup. So you can add turmeric to the milk, and I just say roughly a half a teaspoon. Turmeric's an anti-inflammatory. Turmeric is another one of these wonderful herbs that help. Let me see what I have about turmeric. I had so much written about turmeric, I had to type it up. So it's like, okay. Let's see if I can find it. Where did I put it? I don't know. I'm missing my notes. Okay. No. Well, yeah. So turmeric is think of anti-inflammatory. It's even good for the complexion. Must have. Well, hold on a second. Let me check. Anyways. So let's start today with making this spring spice mix. We're going to be roasting with a pan. I'm actually going to be dry roasting some of these seeds. So I made this spring mix last year, and when I opened it, it's been sitting around for a while, and I don't know if we'll be able to tell the difference in colors, but I can tell you from the smell, there's not much smell left. So I could say this probably isn't very viable because spices don't get old. I've said this before, they just kind of fade away. And if the spices fade away, it doesn't have that oil that they all have in them, the oleoresins that actually are health providing. So we want to make a new spice mix for the spring. So I'm going to start with a tablespoon of whole coriander seeds. These are whole corianders, and I'll just put these in a cup measure for now because I'm going to be putting them in the pan. So you can get whole coriander seeds at the health food store. Coriander is what cilantro grows into. And we actually have in our another room, we've done some microgreens, and my husband planted some coriander seeds in a flat, and you have to press it down and keep the seeds moist, and they're growing in green. And I can show you. I ought to get that. Let me get the microgreens out. I'll be right back. I want to show you what they look like. So look at this. This is a tray of microgreens. My husband, about 5 years ago, took the Master Garden Volunteer course in South Paris, and he's been gardening ever since. We have a pretty extensive garden, and he likes to grow things indoors. So this is cilantro right here. These are microgreens of like the coriander seeds I just showed you. And they're grown, and what you do is you clip them off and you add them to salads. You can see the bare spot right there where we've clipped off some of the other greens we have. We have some mustard in here, some basil, and I forgot what this one is. Oh, I think that's wasabi. Okay, that's pretty hot. So that's a whole other topic. I'm not the gardener, but like I say, he plants them in potting soil, and then you dampen them off, and then you put another layer over them and let them it's almost like sprouting. So anyways, getting back to this is cilantro. I'm going to use a tablespoon of whole coriander seed, and then a teaspoon of fenugreek. And I have fenugreek. Studies have shown that fenugreek, it's called methy. Fenugreek has a maple smell, and it's used in some foods and some cosmetics. And there is, it's actually a legume, and it contains a plant hormone precursor, much like the yam, in that it regulates blood sugar levels. So there have been studies to show that consuming fenugreek aids in both type 1 and type 2 diabetes to keep it in control. And there's a very excellent book I can send you the title of that will give you some more detail about that. It's called The Way of Ayurvedic Herbs. So it's traditionally used for convalescence for people that are depleted. It is contraindicated in pregnancy, and some of these herbs are. So it's good to check that out before prescribing, before telling people to try it out. So I'm using, what did I say, teaspoon of, you got a teaspoon of fenugreek. So that's just a little teaspoon. I'm going to dry roast these because they're in seed form. Put that in there. And cumin seed. Okay. A teaspoon of cumin. Cumin also is a very warming spice and herb rather. It's going to be added to that. You see, have cumin a lot. Cumin is used a lot in Mexican foods with tomatoes. So I'm gonna dry roast this right now over here. I'm gonna have to wash this a little bit because I don't want to burn it. But I'm using a heavy body, iron saucepan, an iron frying pan. I love my iron frying pans. I use them all the time because they don't stick. They're just you have them, you cure them first, and they last forever. I mean, they never die. I'm just gonna watch that a little bit. Just gonna sit for a second. So to this, we're going to be adding some other things. We're going to be adding some black pepper, ginger, and, not black pepper. We're going to be adding cayenne pepper, red pepper, just a little bit, a pinch of cloves, because a little bit of cloves goes a long way. Cloves are pretty strong, and ginger powder. Now those herbs are heating. So what we're doing, the purpose of this spice is to help the digestion come to life. So it's for that reason. And what can you do with these spices? Well, you can sprinkle them over your food. So you don't have to use a lot, but you can add them to your cooking every day. For instance, if you have if you have members in the family who really like pastas, well, if you add things like basil to the pasta, it makes it more digestible. It's not as heavy a food. Certainly you could add this spice mix or put it on the table and see if they like it, because it's an acquired taste, I think, using spices if you've never used them before. So this is coming along. Sometimes you hear a little pop, and I might be waiting for that. If I hear one of the seeds pop, it's the coriander seed. I begin to tell from aroma. I know you can't tell. You can also tell from color. You can begin to see the seeds get a little bit browner. That's a good indicator that we're getting close. But after I'm going to let these cool, so I'm not going to, we'll move on to something else. I'm going to let them cool. Great, that smells good. So I'm going to take them out, pour them in here and let them cool. I don't really want to grind these when they're hot because you'll add moisture to them, and you don't want moisture in your spices. That kind of would be contradictory. So I'm going to let that cool for a second, and let's move over to making a chai. The one thing about that cardamom cake is you can have it with a cup of chai in the morning. And chai can be caffeinated if you wanted to add, you know, a black tea. I'm going to make it with green tea today, but you could add black tea. The other thing cardamom is good for is it reduces the caffeine in something. So if you wanted to add a pinch of cardamom to your coffee before you put it through a funnel, before you're cooking and making the coffee, it will reduce the caffeine amount in the coffee. It takes a little, maybe it takes a little getting used to the cardamom in the coffee, but I kind of like it. I know a lot of people of Finnish extract use cardamom. They use cardamom all the time. Cardamom is very, we talked about the gunas, I think a couple weeks ago, of sattva guna, meaning the pure mind and the lightness and that creativity and intelligence. Well, cardamom is a very sattvic herb. Some herbs, you know, are more rajastic. Like I would say, cayenne pepper is rajastic, and meaning it's, you know, it's hot, it's fiery. That would be a quality not in cardamom. Cardamon's that soothing feel, you know, nice thing. This is what cardamom looks like in a pod. So these are cardamom pods. They come in. I just got this. The seeds are inside the pod. So there's a pod. You know, that's how they grow. Little seed in there in this pod. And I'm going to take, and this isn't a mortar and pestle, it's a sobachi. And I'm just going to kind of open them up a little bit. I want to open up those pods because I'm going to put this in a pan with 2 cups of water. Now, this recipe, you can double it to 4 cups, but since I'm here alone and my husband likes it, we both like it, but there's only 2 of us, I'm just going to make a half cup, 2-cup recipe for this. So I have 2 cups of water. Now I could have used my cooked water. We talked about that last week, cooking water and sipping on cooking water. So, because that lightens the elements of the water, and it's very good for you. So I got 2 cups of water, and I'm going to add, what did I say, 6. I'm going to add 8 cardamom pods. So just think about doubling this if you want 4 cups of water. And I'm going to add 12 peppercorns. It almost sounds like the first day of Christmas, you know. 12 peppercorns. Well, I'm adding these 12. I count them out. So I just get my peppercorns. You know, these are just black peppercorns. So 2, 4, 6, 8. I mean, if you get 1 more in, I'm sure it's fine. But this is heating, again, heating for good for the digestion. It's a great morning drink. And it calls for 6 whole cloves. So I have whole cloves. Those smell pretty good. 2, 4, 6. So again, you know, I buy them in bulk and put them back in my, you know, I buy little amounts, but I keep them in a jar. Smells strong. You can grind these and you'll get powder, but the other day I just didn't have enough. I thought I was running out, so I just went out and got some clove powder. And this is going to last a very long time. I'll probably have to throw some of it out because it won't stay. I won't use that much cloves in a year. I'm pretty sure. Let's see. It calls for, I think, cinnamon. Not this one. Yes, it calls for a cinnamon stick, and since I'm using half of this, I call a cinnamon stick for this. I'm just putting that in the pot. I'm going to put in a teaspoon. I did the black pepper. 2 slices of ginger. Now that means ginger root, not the dried ginger. And what I do is I take the ginger, cut it off, and instead of peeling it with a potato peeler, you know, or vegetable peeler, because you'll take too much skin off, you can just peel it with a spoon. You can just take off. See how I'm just taking the edges off with the skin. Just taking the skin off the ginger root. Now, some people, if they get a lot of ginger root and they want to, and they're not using it as much as they thought they would, I've heard you can freeze it. So I've never done that. I don't know, but I'm just taking the skin off. You don't really have to because we're going to be straining this But I'm going to put in 2 slices. Wash my hands again. Okay. I'm going to put in some slices of ginger root. So wash my hands. And this with a knife. So again, 2 slices of ginger root. Oh, maybe make it 3. Why not? They're about the size of a quarter, you know. So I'm putting those in here, and I'm gonna boil this, simmer it for a while, and at the very end, I'll add a little green tea. I don't like to do it at the very beginning, but it takes about a half a teaspoon of green tea. So I just take I cut the bag open and measure it because I don't want to have too much. So I'll do that in a minute. But let's get back to the spice, the spring spice mix. So these call for, like I say, a bit of warming and a peppery kick. And you can choose to cut back on that if you find it's too hot. But let's go into, let's see, where were we? So now I'm going to grind these. I think they're very cool. So I got the spice grinder. I mean, you could use a mortar and pestle. I just, I like, why, right? So I'm going to put them in the grinder. I don't think I can, I'll have to go over to my outlets over here. Probably, yeah, I'll go over here. Hope you'll see me. I'll go over here if I want. Grind it. If I can reach it. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm just waiting, looking at it, shaking around a little bit just to make sure it's all ground, which it is, pretty sure. Open it up. Oh, yeah. Oh, I wish I could transfer the smell to you. It's so lovely when you roast these, the cumin seeds, the coriander seeds. They just have a nutty aroma, and that fenugreek does. It has a maple smell to it. It really encourages. I feel like I'm salivating, so I think I know it encourages that digestive quality because I'm feeling it already. So I'm just going to put it in this right here, right now, and we're going to add the other properties, this over here. We're going to add the other ingredients. So with the ginger powder, it's a tablespoon. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Ooh, don't go there. Ginger powder, tablespoon. Yeah. So it does make a lot. You have to use it. So I'm just kind of roughly guesstimating. Maybe I'll take my knife and measure correctly. There we go. Nice. Tablespoon of that. Tablespoon of turmeric powder. So I want to, just going to wipe off my tablespoon because I don't want to, if I put it in my turmeric bag, I don't want to mix ginger and turmeric in this bag. It's not be good. We go through a lot of turmeric, and I do buy it in bulk. And the Frontier Co-op is a very good, it's certified organic turmeric. And I believe you could probably get that on Amazon. I don't think that's where we bought this from. But I'm going to just give it a, wait till you see how orange, look at how orange, can you see how orange that is? Oh yeah. Huh. Turmeric in there. And a teaspoon of black pepper. So, get my teaspoon. Oh, does that mean company's coming when you have you drop a spoon on the floor? That's probably not so good in this day and age, so I don't know. It's like, uh-oh, company's coming, quick, lock the door. Have them take a temperature test first. Bad. Okay, so I've got a teaspoon of pepper and then a quarter of a teaspoon of cayenne. Now that's, like I say, that's the one that you might want to just play around with. Maybe you want to just put in a little less, and if you don't find it's enough, add a little more, because cayenne pepper is pretty, what I say, I said, sorry. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's an eighth. We do not want to put a quarter teaspoon of cayenne pepper in this. So what's it? I have a quarter teaspoon measure, so I'm just going to kind of put a little bit of a quarter, little tiny bit in there. A lot of respect for the red pepper. You know, red pepper, I mean, we grow peppers, hot peppers in our garden. How many times I've gone and I've cut that pepper and you know, you get close to your eye, oh my goodness, you know, it's really not pleasant. So that's you know, little thing with the pepper. I put the black pepper in, don't want to do that twice either. I'm going to turn this down. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, check your recipe to make sure you don't like do something twice. Like, no. So we're adding a pinch of cloves, and I haven't even opened this cloves. I haven't even opened this yet. This is brand new. Whoa. Oh, I bet it's going to smell great because it's so dark. My goodness. Cloves, you know, are painkiller also. How many people have been told if they have a toothache to bite on a clove, because it kind of helps this analgesic. So, whoa, that's just going to be a pinch. So, I say a pinch is not even that much. Okay, that's good. All right. I better turn that down. Put a heat diffuser on that. Usually I simmer this on the back burner. That's why it's going so hot. So I think I'm going to just move this because this burner up front is very high. Come on. Alrighty. Okay, dokie. And I'm probably going to just switch over here and just add a little bit of that green tea because it's looking like it needs it now. So I'm just kind of guesstimating a little bit of half a tablespoon there. Yeah. That afternoon time, I think it's kind of good to have, well, I mean, I know green tea has some caffeine in it, but maybe not as much as, probably not as much as black for sure. All right, so here we are with this, stir this around. I'll show you what this looks like. So here we have this amazing spice mix in here. And I'm going to transfer it to, I have a fresh new spice jar. And you know, I like them with the covers on it because then you know you can sprinkle it or you can open it up and add. But I think I can just gently coax this maybe with another teaspoon. I'm going to put this in here so I don't lose it. So I'm just going to add it to this and label it, because if I don't label it, I'll be smelling it going, which one is this? You can kind of get a smell of the idea, but the fenugreek does seem to lose the smell pretty quickly. So it's a bright orange color. I'll show you. That's from the turmeric. Really on time. Oh, we're doing good. Great. Yeah. Anyways, that's good enough. All right. So let's compare the jars, the old and the new. Maybe we'll see a difference. Maybe not. So this is the new spice mix. You could see that color there a little bit. Maybe not as bright. And this one, I don't know, you could see the difference, but I think this one looks a little grayer on the right. I know the jar's not as clean, but there's just, this is going in the trash. There's nothing, there's just absolutely no flavor and vitality in this. You know, when you taste a fresh apple in the fall, like the apple, you just pick an apple off the tree and that crunch and bite, that vitality isn't there when you go to the store and get one in the fall, you know, in the wintertime storage apples. So it's just like that, you know, we've kind of become acclimated in your palate to wanting fresh, good food. So you could take this spice mix and put it on rice. You could put it in your dal soup. You could put it in, I make a macaroni and cheese occasionally, and I add turmeric to it all the time, and it kind of just cuts a little bit of that, you know, macaroni and cheese has a lot of oil, and traditionally kind of a salty dish. I mentioned before about Americans being very familiar with sweet, sour, and salty flavors, but bitter, pungent, and astringent are what Ayurveda is, you know, what we're focusing on when we talk about spices. So this has got this spring spice mix has that quality of a little bit of bitterness, not that much, but very pungent. And I'd say the astringent, and astringent kind of mops up the dampness. So that's a good one to have. Let's go back to our chai. It's getting a little darker, not that much, but it's getting somewhat darker. And I'm going to add to that, I'm going to let it boil a little longer because I didn't tell you the boiling instructions, did I? The cooking. You boil 5 minutes, so I think it's definitely been 5 minutes. And then you add a cup of milk, and I'm going to add some almond milk to it today, not dairy. So I've got my, you can make almond milk from almonds, you know, directly. I've done that before, but price-wise, it's kind of, I think it's more cost-effective to buy it. I hate to tell you, but you know, it's fresher if you make it. So I'm adding a cup of almond milk to this chai. Okay. Which is going to bring down the boiling point, of course. But I'll continue to boil it a little bit. I'll turn it up just a wee bit. Let it cook a little bit longer. We're not afraid to boil milk in Ayurveda either. Because boiling milk, like I say, breaks the protein strands and makes it easier to digest. So it's like, yeah, boil that milk. But this isn't milk. It's almond milk. The next thing I was going to show you. Okay. The next thing I wanted to show you, and I think we have time, is making turmeric sauce. I love turmeric sauce. Turmeric, like I say, is an anti-inflammatory. Honestly, I apologize. I had some more notes on turmeric, and I must have left them upstairs, and my mind's like blank right now. Thinking, what? But I just think of turmeric, think of anti-inflammatory. It actually works on all the tissue layers in the body. And in Ayurveda, there are 7 tissue layers. So it's a blood cleanser. It cleans the lymph. When they say it helps with complexion, it's because it's gone through all those 7 processes of 7 tissue layers. So this is called savory turmeric sauce. And I'm going to probably get a bowl. Yeah, that'll be good. While I'm doing that, I'm going to put this. I don't know if many of you have, this is an old heat diffuser. I think I have a better looking one here. Sorry for the noise. These heat diffusers, if you're cooking with gas, are great because when I'm making rice or I'm wanting something to simmer but not even, you know, like a little bit on medium high, I know I won't burn it because it diffuses the heat. So I'm putting this under the chai, which we will strain before we eat, before you drink, because otherwise you'd be drinking, you know, pods and things. You don't want that. So for this calls for, I modified this recipe. This calls for 2.5 tablespoons of toasted sesame oil. Okay. I'm just going to use, since we're going to use a lot of turmeric, I'm not going to worry about, yeah. Okay. Don't worry about that. So I'm just going to put that in here. I'm guesstimating the half. It actually, the original recipe called for 1/4 cup, but I found that was just too much. So I changed it a little bit. So I'll get that. And then I'm going to put in 1/4 cup of sesame tahini. I don't know if you've ever I don't know if you've ever cooked with tahini. Tahini is creamed sesame seeds. You could take sesame seeds and put them in a Cuisinart and just let them continue to grind, and you'll get a paste. So I'm going to look at 1/4 cup of that. Here's a 1/4 cup measure. That's fine because it's got turmeric in it. All right. So I do like sesame. Unlike peanut butter, sesames are seeds and peanuts are legumes. So peanuts have a tendency to clog. They're a little more hard to digest on the body than, for the body than a sesame seed. And you probably, if you've been to any Indian restaurants, you might see they might have they might use sesames a lot in certain foods, in desserts, whatever. Sesame seeds are used all over. Sesame oil is used. Wonderful for skin care. So that's roughly a quarter. That's more or less a quarter cup. I mean, what the heck? You don't have to be exact with the science. We're going to be adding turmeric to this. I'm going to be adding a little more, adding some water. So I'm just going to add tap water. And going to be adding white miso paste. Miso is a Japanese food. It's soybeans that are fermented, so it's a fermented food. And that we're going to be adding 2 tablespoons. That out again. So 2 tablespoons of miso. Miso's salty, but this recipe will offset that. And miso is very good. I mentioned my mother-in-law had breast cancer, and she went on a macrobiotic diet. And macrobiotic uses a lot of fermented foods, uses miso under the direction of her physician, and it really helped her during her chemo. And this is back in 1984, so they were more rigorous with the treatments, I believe. And her hair, which was gray at the time, returned to brown. So we don't know if that was the macrobiotic diet or not, but she really embraced it. She became, she started to teach other people how to cook that way because she was already she had been a gourmet cook, and she just transferred her knowledge of cooking into the macrobiotic. Was very successful at it. I'm going to get a what do you call this? Whisk. I'm going to whisk this. So we're going to add a little bit of, to offset the salt, we're going to add maple syrup. Just 2 teaspoons. So add 2 teaspoons. Right. 2 teaspoons of maple syrup. And I'm going to add a little lemon into that. Right. Yep. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of maple syrup. Whoops, a little over, a little under. Okay, that's good. I'm going to, I didn't do the lemons up yet, but I'm going to add a juice of 1 lemon. So just go right on the counter. Open up. I love this lemon juicer, because you don't get the seeds in your juicer. Probably have these at home, but this one's pretty sweet because it also stores the lemon juice. So if I'm making in the morning, I like to have sometimes hot water and lemon. It's very good if you're feeling sluggish and you want to have a little boost for your elimination. Lemon juice will do it. It's very good. And to this, we're going to add a scant amount of tamari sauce. So I'm adding all this lemon juice to that recipe. I'm going to add just about a teaspoon. Is that right? What's up with that? Oh, okay. Right. A teaspoon of this, maybe 2, because it calls for 2. Actually. Okay. So this is salt. So you have you have the flavors sweet, sour. You have sour, you have the lemon. Okay. You have sweet, you have the maple syrup. You have salty with miso. And the punch is going to be coming along with the turmeric. the turmeric, you add a teaspoon of turmeric. So I'm gonna, this is a clean teaspoon. So I'm just guessing there. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna whisk it up. I use this over salads. Drizzle this over vegetables. If you're making roasted vegetables, you can drizzle this, and it just satisfies the taste, because it has, like I say, sweetness in it, sourness, salty, certainly pungent. So it's getting a lot of that. And when we satisfy those five, the sweet, sour, salty, the six, bitter, pungent, and astringent, then we feel like it really helps the body, and it certainly reduces any food cravings. So it looks like, almost looks like an egg yolk, but it isn't. So I usually take this and I just pour it in a mason jar, because I'm gonna want this and refrigerate this, obviously. Oh, we should smell that. I keep saying that. But, so that's this is turmeric. This is turmeric paste. And you could drizzle, like I say, drizzle over steamed or sauteed roasted vegetables, over salad. You can put it over your favorite grain. It stores in the refrigerator for about 2 to 3 days. It doesn't last that long in my house, but I actually found I've stored it a little longer than that, the turmeric. Let's go back to the chai. Oh, it's looking good. Aha. I can pour that in I'll pour that in a Pyrex dish, so you get to see what that looks like. Okay, we don't want that. Oh, and you can actually add a little, well, wait, but when it cools, you can add a little sweetener to that. Ayurveda does use honey, but they never recommend you eat honey or you eat anything with baked honey, because honey is considered to be good fresh, but when you heat it, it has an ability to clog the channels, according to what they said. So here we have, I've taken, I've strained it. You see all this stuff that's sitting there, and I don't tend to use it over again. That's going to go in the compost. This is making a lovely cup of tea that you can have with your cardamom cake. Yeah, whoops, spilling it a little bit. So I'm going to just, it has a smell of cinnamon, has that warming smell, a little bit of clove smell to that. I say this one, because I made it with almond milk, it's not as creamy tasting. I tend to like a creaminess on a cold day like this, so I might add half almond and half whole milk, because it kind of gives it that boost. But it's a really inexpensive way, and it's not as sweet as the chai mixes you get in the store, which I feel like are just overly sweetened. So we have, this, you can have the sweet cake, you can have your chai, so you can have your cake and eat it too. I'm going to open this up for questions right now. We could maybe stop the recording and continue on.